This is Saxon Math for 6th grade. Today we're doing lesson 91. We're going to be working with signed numbers. These are numbers with positive or negative signs in front of them. We had a question about this from our recent test, and so I'm really excited that we get a chance to talk about it all together. Let's look at problems that we've had before. Things like -3 plus 4 minus 5 minus 2. Take a moment, write that on your paper, please. Pause the video and solve it. See if you can do it without me. Welcome back. What you should have done from before is taken -3, added 4 more, -3 plus 4 gives us 1, minus 5 minus 2. If I subtract 5 and I subtract 2, I'm subtracting 7. So now I'm left with a positive 1 minus 7. 1 minus 7 equals -6. What's new about this is that I'm explicitly explaining where to keep the signs. Think of the sign as going kind of with the number that it's next to. -3 plus a positive 4 is -3 plus 4. I haven't changed anything, but it helps us think about what sign goes with this number. Plus a -5 is the same thing as minus 5. I haven't changed anything. Plus a -2 is the same thing as minus 2. I haven't changed anything. And I still get the same answer. But it helps you think about which sign goes with which number when you're solving problems. When you have a longer string of numbers, particularly ones that have multiplication and addition, of course we do our multiplication first. But if I'm going to multiply, where do I put the signs? And are they plus or minus, or are they positive or negative? The answer is that you can use them as either. When I look at this problem, one of the first things that I do in my head is I break it up into pieces to help me think where the signs go. I think of -2 as sort of standing off by itself. And then I'm left with this, plus 3 times -2. So I'm going to treat that as a positive 3 times a -2. And I'm going to add these together in the end. Minus 2 times positive 4. So I'm going to think of this as a -2 plus 4. I'm going to add that to this when I'm done. Let's solve it this way. -2 plus 3 times -2. Well, I know 3 times 2 is 6. And a positive times a negative is a negative. Notice that the signs go back and forth. In some cases, we're using them as a minus sign and we're subtracting. In other cases, we're using them as a negative. Right now, that's okay. And then over here, I have a -2 times 4. 2 times 4 is 8. A negative times a positive is a negative. I'm left with -2 minus 6 minus 8. My goodness, 2 and 8 is 10, and 6 more is 16. There was -2, -6, -8. It is a -16. Splitting things up into parts to keep their signs together also works when you need to fill in the numbers in an equation. For example, if you're given something with x's and y's, and you're told what x and y equals, you're going to add in your parentheses once again to help you multiply them together. We're using numbers with signs here, which is why this goes in this lesson. Let's fill in our x's and y's and see if we can solve. When I go to put the x in, and this is the new part, the part you want to listen to, don't just write the number and then keep writing. Otherwise, if you just write this next to that, it's going to look like 23 instead of like x times y. So when you write them, put them in parentheses. X is -2, so I have -2 minus whatever x is. X is -2, okay, times y. Notice how x and y are next to each other? So I'm going to write x and y next to each other, but they're not going to create just like 23. Instead, they're going to be two numbers side by side which of course means they're multiplied together. Y is negative 3, so for y I'll put negative 3, minus y again, which is negative 3. Lots of negatives there, huh? Now let's do like we did up here, and let's look at it in parts. Let's look at this being a part, this being a part, and that being a part. Negative 2 minus negative 2 times negative 3. Negative 2 times negative 3 will give me 6. And a negative times a negative is a positive. It's a negative, gives me a positive 6, and then I'm subtracting. So negative 2 times negative 3 gives me 6. I'm subtracting. And then I have minus a negative 3. Wait a second. Minus a negative, that's the same thing as plus. Negative 2 minus 6 gives me negative 8. Plus 3 gives me negative 5. As you work through the lettered problems today, please be careful with your positive and negative signs, and pay attention to whether the numbers are multiplied and to whether you're adding or subtracting.